Hey guys, we are Sean and Christy. This is Long Long Honeymoon.
Who let the dog out?
And in this video, we're going to give you a pre-flight checklist for a big RV trip. Of course, a lot of this advice would also apply to a small RV trip.
Yeah, it's really important to check some of these things before you hit the road because there's nothing worse than getting to your first overnight stop and
suddenly discovering that something important is broken. Tires, tires, tires. Are you surprised we're starting with tires? First of all, you need to check the tire pressure. Make sure that they've been inflated to the proper specs. Secondly, you can check the tire tread. But with RV tires, a lot of times tire tread is not going to tell you very much because RVs spend most of their time sitting still. So a third thing you newcomers to RV travel might check will be the age of your tires. If you look on tires, you can actually find a date stamp that will tell you the date of manufacture of the tire. You may have a set of tires that look perfectly fine, but that rubber on those tires may be 10 years old. And tires typically have a shelf life of 4 to 6 years. Once you get beyond 6 years, you're probably rolling the dice. A second item to check would be to do an inspection of your brakes and your brake wires. You know, recently we were with Airstream Nuts and Bolts, Ronnie Dennis, and he was performing a visual inspection of our brakes and he found a severed brake wire. So that sort of thing can happen when the RV is in transit down the highway and you might never know it. So it really makes sense to get underneath your RV, get down low, and check it out. Nothing worse than getting out there on the road, traveling somewhere with your RV, and then finding that your electric jack is broken. So you may want to check the condition of the jack before you hit the road. Now, if you do have an electric jack and it does fail, you probably have a little tool that will help you use the jack in a manual fashion. So you gotta make sure that you have that tool with you, because if you have a jack failure and you don't have that tool, then you are SOL, my friend.
What kind of people show up to a friend's house with empty propane tanks? This kind of person right here.
I was the one that wanted to stop for propane.
No, you didn't.
You said
no. I didn't. I said yes. I always say stop for propane.
The other thing you want to do is check your propane tank levels. You know, make sure everything is connected well. Make sure you've got which tank selected that you want to use from if your setup is like that. Just do a visual inspection. See if everything's working the way it should. Make sure you don't have any unusual odors or anything like that. And if you really wanted to be Mr. Check It, you could always spray a soapy water solution over this to make sure you don't have any sort of leak or anything on your hoses that connect to your trailer. The other thing you want to make sure you check before you head out of town are all of your brake lights and your turn signals and your reverse lights. Reverse lights are sometimes something that you miss when you're doing a check when you're rolling out because you aren't shifting into reverse, so you just don't think about it. But it is helpful to make sure that those are working as well. So check all of those. That means you will have to back up your tow vehicle and connect your plug so that you'll have power to all these and can check those appropriately. The other thing you can do is make sure all of your external storage boxes and drawers are functioning and locking, that they have all the pins that hold them in properly, and make sure everything is locked up nice and tight. One other item on the exterior of your camper that you can check before you leave is your awning. We have a manual awning, so it's more making sure that everything's been lubricated properly and locked into place the way it should be. But if you have a manual awning, you want to make sure that that is working properly before you hit the road as well.
Now it's time to talk about your balls. How many times have I told you people you should always lube your balls? And I'm talking about these balls here on the side of the trailer, and also your primary hitch ball. We lube them up. Leads to more traveling pleasure. That was a dirty hitch. AC, check your air conditioning and make sure it is functioning properly. We actually had the experience once traveling out in a heat wave, only to get on the road and discover our first night of boondocking that our air conditioner was not working. So we spent the next 48 hours in a desperate scramble to get our air conditioner repaired. And we spent a couple of really miserably hot, sweaty nights inside our camper. Run all of your onboard equipment through its paces.
The next appliance you're going to want to check is your refrigerator. If you don't have the luxury of having your refrigerator plugged in while it's in storage, it's good to go ahead and plug it in and get it going before you get on the road, because it usually takes at least a full 24 hours, if not 48 hours, for it to cool down to the temperature that you set it to. So it's going to take a little time for it to run, for you to see if it's actually functioning properly or not. Everything's still frozen. So you want to do that so that you don't get on the road and find out that your fridge has bit the dust, because that is a major bummer. So the next thing to check, if you have them in your RV, are your fantastic fans. These are just sort of your circulation fans that help out when you aren't running your AC, just to get you a little breeze going within the camper to keep it from being so stuffy. But it is very helpful to have when you're out there, and it's also really inconvenient to not have it when you're out there. So check both of those, or however many you have in your RV, and make sure they're functioning the way that they should.
Water levels. You want to check your water levels, fresh, black, and gray. Most people want to have their black and gray empty, if at all possible, when traveling. Some people empty their freshwater tank. Others, like us, fill their freshwater tank to the brim. In our travel trailer, the freshwater tank lies directly above the axles, and the theory is that our trailer will actually tow better with that water weight pressing down on those axles. So we typically fill up our freshwater tank to full before we get on the road. And with regard to fresh water, when you're filling your freshwater tank, you may want to filter it before putting it in your RV. We always use a water filter when filling up our Airstream. And I have here a couple of nice water filters. These are from Clear 2.0. Water filter and this new doohickey called the Dirt Guard Sediment Pre-Filter. So these two items together will double filter the water before it comes into your RV. Obviously, having a full freshwater tank also helps us in terms of boondocking. We know we can stop and have some fresh water and take a hot shower.
So speaking of hot showers, the next thing you want to make sure you check is your water heater. It's one of those things where you need to make sure there's actually water in your water heater before you turn this on to check it. So make sure you've done that. Basically, you can choose the propane option or the electric option. And it's really best to test both of them to make sure that both work. I just heard the propane water heater kick on. So we can let that run for a few minutes and then test the water to make sure that it's getting hot.
You also want to check all of your tables, like this one for example, and make sure that they're properly folded away, latched, and stored so they're not going to break loose and potentially become damaged as you're traveling down the highway. When an RV is in motion, it's being subjected to earthquake level forces, and that's especially true of these travel trailers. They bounce up and down the highway, and if it's not locked or battened down in some fashion, then it's gonna flop around and potentially be damaged and or cause damage. So you wanna make sure all of your drawers are properly shut. Make sure your refrigerator door is closed. I've heard stories of people who had failed to properly close the refrigerator door. They get to their destination and a dozen eggs are broken on the floor. How sad.
So the next thing you want to make sure you check is your oven, your stovetop. Make sure that it lights. So let's do a quick little test there. It's super easy to check the stovetop. It's a little more difficult to check the interior of your oven to make sure that it's gonna light properly, but it's worth it just to make sure that nothing's come loose. We've actually had a connector piece inside of our oven that's come loose a couple of times over the years, just from the motion of jumping up and down as this trailer is towed down the road. So it can actually be dangerous because it can cause a leak of sorts.
Okay.
Also, something else you can do just as you're packing is to make sure that everything is in a position where it's not gonna slide out and hit you in the face. Sometimes when you're unpacking from your previous trip, you forget that you didn't put something back or that it's shifted and you forget, and so the next time you open it, it's all gonna fall out on your face. So just double check the way you've got your overhead cabinets packed especially. And it's also the time to check those cabinets and make sure that they're locking into place the way that they should. Same thing with these cabinet doors. Make sure that those locking functions are actually working, just to make sure that you don't end up with a floor full of items that shouldn't be on the floor. Open all of your windows. A lot of times when they've been closed up all season, or if it's been a while since you've been camping, they'll get stuck. And so you have to go outside and sort of pry them open a little bit. You can help that by putting a little silicone on them, but you have to reapply that probably once a year or so.
Guys, you need to take good care of your cords. You need to examine your cords. I'm talking about your electrical cords.
Plastic and electrical heat. What could go wrong?
Check this out. This is a 30 amp extension cord that we used for years, and you can see things got a little warm in there at some point, and so we will not be using this again in the future. Here we have a new 30 amp extension plug installed by my favorite handy woman, but you can see we've got a nice new plug. We've had issues at times with these plugs. Sadly, these cords do not last forever, and I can think of many times we've been out on the road only to have our 30 amp plug fail, and we've had to rewire one. I actually think, as a matter of practice, it's not a bad idea to keep a spare one of these in your RV for the possibility that if it does fail, you're not gonna have to go search for one. Seems like every time we have one fail, we have to go on a wild goose chase. We have to go looking for one. Also, you want to have your dog bones. Like when we carry a 20 amp to 30 amp dog bone, we also have a 50 amp to 30 amp. Depending upon what your power needs are, you know, sometimes you might pull up into a campsite and they will only have 50 amp available when you need 30. In that case, you need a 50 to 30 dog bone. And you 50 amp people out there may want a 30 to 50. And of course, if you're ever going to go mooch docking at a friend's house, you're going to want a 20 to 30 or 20 to 50, however that works.
One other thing to check, add to the list, is your water pump. Flip it on, make sure you're actually getting water flowing through those pipes. And for good measure, flush your toilet. Make sure that everything goes down the way it's supposed to. And you can also make sure that you don't have any leaks. When you're in your bathroom checking your water pump, it's a good idea to go ahead and drop in some tank chemicals. Go ahead and get one of these bad boys working on your black tank. And actually you can add these to your gray tank too.
Here's a slightly unusual tip. Check your storage spaces and pull stuff out.
Packing is so much fun.
You know, I think when you first get an RV, your instinct is to stuff it full of everything you can. But over time, having too much stuff inside your RV actually detracts from the overall travel experience, I think.
Well, well, well. What have we here?
You need to check all of your exterior storage bins. Sometimes little critters can build nests in there, so you want to make sure you're not carrying any stowaways, and you also want to make sure that you have the tools that you're going to want in those bins, or whatever it is that you carry in your outside storage.
Hey guys, you know there is nothing that gets me more excited than a new sewer hose or other sewer accessory. Tonight, I have a pair. I have a premium 10. What's so funny?
Also, this probably sounds somewhat bizarre, but you want to check, make sure that you've got your sewer hose on board and it's in a secure place. We actually had a problem a few years ago. We were going down to Disney World, and at the time we stored our sewer hose in this little storage pipe that resides beneath our travel trailer. Well, during our journey to Disney World, at some point, the cap on top of that storage unit fell off and was lost. And our sewer hose jumped out somewhere on the interstate between here and Disney World. So if you found a 10-foot sewer hose somewhere on a Florida highway, probably belonged to us. You don't have to worry about returning it. You can keep it. So there you have it, guys, our pre-flight checklist for a big RV trip. What have we missed? Chime in, post a comment, give us your suggestions for what you check with your RV before taking it out on the road.
If you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share it with any friends and family that you think might get some use out of it. And if you haven't yet, please click that subscribe button down below. We would be very happy for you to join us here at Long Long Honeymoon. And until next time, what do we say?
We say,
LOLOHO.
LOLOHO.
So we've printed up a little list based on everything that we've talked about here today. We've put it in a PDF format that you guys can actually print and take with you if you want while you're on the road or while you're getting ready to hit the road. So you can either download it from the link below this video, or you can go to longlonghoneymoon.com and find it there.
Check your plugs. Wild goose hunt, snipe hunt. By the way, guys, I'm giving away a Nikon camera body on the second channel we have here on YouTube called the Shawn Michael Simulation. It's a channel dedicated to photography and to more international style of travel. So if you're interested in that sort of stuff, or you just want a cool Nikon camera body, go over there, subscribe, post a comment, and you'll be entered to win.